Okay, you ready? Slowly, slowly.
It's just 4 steps, but for 10-year-old Malamulele, this is like climbing Kilimanjaro. Malamulele is suffering from cerebral palsy, like the other children here at Nkwamakwi Clinic, outside Butterworth in the Eastern Cape. In a world dominated by HIV/AIDS, it's a condition that often confuses those in rural Africa.
All it means is that there's been damage to a developing brain. That can have happened before the child was born, during the birth, or after the birth, for a variety of reasons.
Dr. Gillian Saluji has a PhD in physiotherapy, specializing in cerebral palsy. She's also an internationally recognized neuro-developmental therapy tutor, which in plain English means she can train therapists to work with children with cerebral palsy.
We believe that every child with cerebral palsy has got the potential to change, even though the child did not have the benefit of treatment early on in his life. It's never too late to start to make a difference.
Through her organization, Malamulele Onward, Dr. Saluji moved into this field because she saw that mothers of affected children in these areas, even today in the 21st century, were in desperate need of help.
How often do you manage to do it in a week? Every day. Every day.
As a group of therapists, what we want to do is to say to the parents, your child has got the potential to do more than he's doing now, and we can show you how you can do it on your own.
But Dr. Saluji needs help in instructing mothers how to care for their children, and boy, does she get it. The Malamulele Onwards project is totally dependent on volunteers, but this is one area, according to Gillian, where there's absolutely no shortage. Volunteers from all around the country and even overseas commit to help for a few days every year. Volunteers like Marilyn Basson.
Living here in South Africa, there's so much work to be done with so many kids. I've volunteered now for about 15 years in various children's organizations.
Do you get very emotionally involved?
Yes, I do. It took me many, many years to stop looking at these kids as though they were my own.
It's on the follow-up visits at the children's homes deep in the Transkei Hills, 3 months after the clinic sessions, that the magnitude of the challenge facing the volunteers is made real. Gillian's been quite a rugged trip. I mean, how much further?
Well, Derek, we're almost there. Onwaba's house is in the village, which is at the top of that mountain over there.
Right at the top. In rental cars, we travelled 60 kilometres over dirt roads that could be treacherous in the rain. It's a journey a gogo or grandmother would have to make with a disabled child by village taxi. It's a 60 rand round trip, probably in a bakkie without suspension. This is the home of 16-year-old Onwaba Sijeka in the village of Nkankule. Apart from having cerebral palsy, she doesn't speak, is nearly blind, was abandoned by her parents, and has a learning problem. She's cared for by her great-aunt, Gogo Novulele. Caregiver as well. Helped by Gillian and her assistant, Buzi Mkolombani, for 15 years the government's only physiotherapy assistant in the region, Onwaba joined Gillian on the bench. I find it so hard to read how she's feeling, because she seems to be smiling. But
you can also feel with her body, if there's something that you're doing that she doesn't like, you can feel it immediately under your hands, that the muscles are tensing up. And at the moment, I think she's just kind of aware that there's a whole lot of people in the room that she's not used to, and she's just taking time. Mm-hmm. And you get this smile.
That is a smile. Onwaba's health issues are as serious as it can get living in rural South Africa. Yet true to her mantra, Gillian says it's never too late.
There's still possibility of change, and that's one of the reasons that we make this follow-up visit, to identify something like this and spend some time with her grandmother, which is useful that we're actually here at her house.
Now, to put this in context, just using a face cloth is a huge milestone for Onwaba.
With self-care, washing herself, feeding herself, someone had to do it for her.
So she can wash herself?
She's tried. We've given her a mitt. There's a mitt that she's used to try and wash herself and wash her face, and she'll do that now. She'll try and feed herself. she couldn't, so now she's starting to feed herself.
Onward left her standing box and took us outside to demonstrate how she walks. It really is slow and seemingly painful progress, but I want to know from Gogo if you've seen much improvement since she went to the centre.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Looking after a child with cerebral palsy is difficult enough in the big cities. Can you imagine what it's like living in very humble circumstances, literally miles from nowhere, like the village of Tutuga in the hills outside Butterworth? The poverty in Onward's household leads to complicated hygiene issues. Added to the girl's lack of access to regular therapy, leaves Gillian worried about her continued progress here. But for every worry in the Transkei, there's a smile. And here in Tutuga, we found plenty.
How are you?
16-year-old Lubabalo Makapule is a very different case. While he can't stand or walk by himself and is totally dependent on someone to dress and feed him, Gillian says he's a bright boy with potential. He suffers from a different form of cerebral palsy known as dystonic.
The moment he tries to do something, his body really gets twisted and contorted into impossible positions, and it's very typical of children that have got dystonic cerebral palsy. Most children with dystonic kind of cerebral palsy have quite normal intelligence, and that's the tragedy, that you've got a highly intelligent young boy trapped in this body that gets very twisted and contorted.
But whatever shape his body takes, Lubabalo is a driven young man. After a month spent at a school in Johannesburg, he returned with a wheelchair given to him by a classmate and serious determination. You just got to see how determined these kids like Lubabalo are. I mean, they just want to be independent. I mean, some people might look at it and say, yeah, it's cruel to leave them on their own, but I think it's just amazing what they do. Well done, eh? Great. Following this inspiring young man into the Makapula family room, we found Jean Elphick, project manager with Malamulele Onward. Jean is, like all the volunteers, a specialist physiotherapist.
Lubabalo is a champion, and to any newcomer to cerebral palsy, you know, it takes you as a shock, and you don't realize that these are kids like any other child. They all have personalities. Some of them are just impossible. Some of them try so hard. Yeah, they do. They're all characters.
And Jean was at Park Station to collect him when Lubabalo arrived in Johannesburg with his uncle for his arranged month at a special needs school.
He got off at Park Station, and I found them amongst the crowds. And as we were driving through sort of central Joburg, he was just exclaiming, you know, and he was so excited that his hands were kind of flying all over the show, and he was in the passenger seat and he kept on hitting me, and I was trying to drive and avoid taxis, and he was very excited.
Something that also gets Lubabalo going are his feet. The left to push his wheelchair, the right to change the TV channels. And not to forget the family, he plays board games with his uncle. Big issue is the electric wheelchair. And how far are you down the road with this whole process?
We're quite far down the road, and that's only made possible by
He likes the idea of the electric wheelchair.
an incredible team of people. When you look around you, there are not too many cars around. So to introduce something as sophisticated as an electric chair in these surroundings, people often think you're mad. It's just not going to work. Physically, we've got to work with him, so it's possible for him to use the chair so that when he pushes the buttons, he doesn't kind of fall out or tip the chair over. He's also got to have a chair that's fairly rugged, and we have to train his family in the maintenance of the chair. It's like any other small motor car.
Impoverished this area may be, but it's a part of the world where the elderly and the disabled are never locked away or forgotten. The fact that these children aren't abandoned says a lot for the character of the community.
They really understand what family is about. There is no such thing as put my child in a home. It's a cousin will help, an uncle will help, a granny will help, and for that I salute them.
Oh.